Spiritual stuff.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spiritual Stuff with your co hosts
Chantsy from the
and
production
Reaya.
portal and Reaya from Reaya.
Reaya from Reaya. Welcome, everybody. This is our very first episode,
Woo!
and we're very excited. We kind of aren't 100% sure of what we're doing. We have like a million ideas. We've got, we're inspired by so many things, but I think the reason that brought us to this idea was we both love coming together and talking about spiritual stuff. And Chantsy and I have been doing a twice a month we've been doing videos around the moon and having like little interviews and chats for her company, the Portal Production. So we kind of like came together.
Portal. Like, I mean, this is what we're like, people.
What did I say?
The Portal Production.
Oh, I'm all about portals at the moment. Sorry, the production portal. Anyway, you're welcome. We just like plugged you a couple of times.
Yeah, exactly. That was the point. And we just have fun doing that. Like we've been talking about the moon and the moon cycles for the last couple of months, and they have evolved, and our relationship and friendship has bloomed from it as well. And so this is all the bits behind the scenes, I guess, that people don't see, but we're really fleshing out the spiritual stuff, the stuff that we love, the stuff that we see in our day to day, and we're bringing it all together.
And I think what we want to bring to light, if so to speak, is that, Chantsy and I, we both have very different opinions. We both are going through maybe different things at around the same time, and I think it's really nice to hear somebody else's perspective on what's going on for them. Like we talk a lot about the moon and about the energy and about astrology, and often what's happening with the moon sometimes isn't happening with us, or it's exactly what's happening. So we're going to talk about that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about what we're dealing with energetically. We'd also love to hear from you people, because we were thinking about spiritually awaken. Like, have you had an aha moment or something that has happened to you, or like as kind of breakthrough? Like, how did you join the tribe, so to speak?
Yeah. What happened? What happened? How did it happen? What are you feeling? What stage within your spiritual awakening are you? We want to hear from you guys, like there's a plethora of people out there who are waking up, right? So
100%. But some people, when they are brought to a spiritual journey, a lot of people think that something bad has to happen, and it's not necessarily so. So, if something bad has happened that led you here, that's absolutely fine. If something amazing has led you here, absolutely fine. So it's just about finding out like your story and how you came to be and how you see your spiritual awakening, or what are the tools that you use and what are the things that you do to keep yourself in that kind of rhythm. And I think in our next episode, we might even talk about what we do and how we connected, and also about our spiritual awakening. Unless you want to touch on that now.
I mean, let's touch on it now. I think. Do you want to kick it off?
Okay. I guess for me, I have a spiritually awakening. Okay, hold on, because
give her a minute, people. Give her a minute.
There's a big story behind this, not a big story. It's because there's so much going on for me when I was really young.
How young are we talking, Reaya?
Maybe 5 or 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I really remember a lot of stuff from that age. I could sense lots of energy. I think when I was young, I liked to be on my own a lot. I liked spending a lot of time on my own. I think because there was so much going on. But I didn't know how to say it. I didn't know how to articulate it. When I was 15, I think I had my first tarot reading.
Can I ask a quick question? Because like when I was 8, I think I started, I had spirit guides definitely at that point, but you don't really know, right? You don't really know what's going on. I used to hang out in the bush all the time and I used to talk to myself, but now.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Always talking to myself.
Yep.
Like, yeah. I
Yep.
still do it. My husband often
100%.
says, to me, Reaya, you're talking to yourself. And I'm like, well, I'm having a very important conversation.
I do it all the time. And then I look at people who walk past me and I'm like, so like I'm talking to my spirit guides right now. Like,
Yeah.
let
But
me
if you
be.
think about it in this day and age, we can get away with it because most of the people have like earphones in and you can't see. So most of the people look like they're talking to themselves at any rate these days. So we can kind of like get away with.
I don't have headphones in when I do it.
No, me neither. But no one needs to know that, right? They can't. I can just have my hair over my ears. They'd have no idea.
That's the way to do it. Sorry, so I rudely
Exactly.
interrupted. So you had your first tarot at 15?
Yes, and you know
Yep.
what? It's a crazy because I remember my first tarot reading. I still remember who it was with, and it was
Oh,
my mum organized with her friends, so we did it at home.
interesting. Yeah.
And the first card that I ever got was the death card. And I
Wow.
remember her turning it over and saying, no, Reaya, this is just out with the old and in with the new. You need to make changes and bring in this new energy. And every time I did tarot, my cards were always amazing. Like they would say, oh, you've got the most amazing spread.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah.
At 15.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I was just fascinated from then. And then obviously I went traveling, I did things, but wherever I was traveling, I met spiritual people. I go to meditation groups. I was just always like hooked in,
Yeah.
but not completely. It's not until I came back to Australia, I think it was in 2009, and then I started my business. In 2010, I was doing readings. I know, actually I was just doing healings.
Wow.
And then I started to do readings, and then I started to teach meditation, and then I started doing workshops, and then energetically it just evolved. And obviously the more you do something, the more you hear, the more messages you get, the louder it gets, the more people that come through. It's amazing. So I also want to say to people out there, if you think you have to be attuned to be intuitive or to connect to your guides, you're completely wrong. Like we all have it within us.
Yeah.
It's just about practicing. And one of the things that I'll say, if you want to connect with your guides, meditate.
Yeah.
Meditate.
Yeah, it's so funny because I mean, I never used to meditate. And I mean, you get into that, right? And then I did meditation. I think you actually told me to meditate in one of our sessions.
Probably because I think I tell everyone to meditate. It's one of those tools, right? That it is for free.
Yeah.
And we can do it as often as we need, and we will feel amazing.
Yeah. Just even like I do my meditation. And I mean, everyone's going to be different, but I do it just before I wake up, half an hour before I wake up. So then I'm still in the unconscious mind. And then just before bed. And sometimes I do it in the middle of the day if I don't have time to do an exercise. But it's so true. That's the way that you can really start to tap in and attune to yourself.
It's the easiest way.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
agreed.
the answers and the messages you get from constantly sitting in your own stuff is mind-blowing.
Yeah. And I mean,
I was going to say, people though, they get really panicked when they sit in silence or they sit still. People start to get nervous because they start to feel the feelings they don't want to feel.
Yeah.
So I often say to people, if you get really afraid, get a candle and watch the flame. If your mind is super active and you can't kind of slow things down for the first few months or the first few weeks, whatever you feel comfortable with, do something.
Yeah,
do you know, like watch the flame for 5 minutes and do 5 minutes every day. And then the next week do 10. And then the next week do 15 and then take the candle away. You know, it's kind of like just allowing yourself to shut your mind off or quieten your mind.
Even I found like when I was busy, chanting helped me because I do really love music, and I've always been drawn to lyrics and music. And I found that just by chanting and listening to my own voice, you know, was quite healing, and it enabled me to focus on the chant rather than the thought.
Amazing.
Yeah.
See,
another little
there's
hint
so
and trick.
many little tools that you can do if you're, you have monkey mind.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I meditate, if I have monkey mind, I say, okay, come and play. Like,
Yeah.
let me go through my thoughts
I
and let me
love
just
that.
sort through things. And then once I've acknowledged it, it goes away.
Yeah. I think when you're distracted, when
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes you can't help but being distracted. It's like sometimes I go to yoga and the hour is up in like no time. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I just thought I sat here. And other times I'm like, oh my gosh, when is it going to end? It just depends on that doesn't happen very often, but I think that was last week. I was like so not in my body.
Yeah.
And I was all over the shop and I was like, kept looking at the clock going, I need this to end. I need this to end. And I hadn't been like that for a long time. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on with me?
But let's talk about that, right? Because we did talk about this off air before. And this is the reason that we got drawn to doing this podcast and this YouTube channel and and this vid. But the energies that were flying around after the solar moon eclipse, and then it was the lunar eclipse, was intense. Like even in lead up to the lunar eclipse, I found after the solar eclipse, it was just there was a period, there was one particular day where I just knew that the energy worldwide had shifted. I mean, I'd seen it not only in my outside world, but I could feel it like you, Ray. I think it was the same day that we'd said.
Yeah.
I could feel it internally where I couldn't sit still, and it was like, okay. And I just kept grounding and balancing. But
yeah, I think we touched on this before, but like I remember after lunch, I was cutting vegetables or something and I just started bawling my eyes out. And it was like, wow. But I was thinking about someone, which made me quite emotional. But it was just allowing myself to grieve. And then at yoga that same time, something else happened. Like I saw my grandma was next to me. She's not here, she's over there, but she was there next to me, and my yoga teacher came and hugged me to say she's here, like the confirmation of that for me. So it's kind of like, sometimes you don't want to see it, or you don't believe it for yourself because it feels too real, but sometimes you just have to trust.
You have to trust, and you have to sit in it.
Yeah. You gotta sit in your stuff.
You gotta sit in it.
You gotta sit in your stuff. It's the only way for us to truly heal.
Absolutely. I mean, I found myself now, especially within this period, I am throwing myself into the bush every day, which I was always doing anyway in the mornings.
Yeah, I think that's so amazing.
And there's a creek or a gorge that I go to, and it's been my godsend, and I've just been throwing myself in the water every morning. Freezing cold because it's in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, Australia, for anyone who is listening. And it's kind of like the Wim Hof, breath work exercise, but just being in that water and just calming the breath and then getting out. I just feel so electric and alive once I'm out,
Yeah, but like that cold water does something to our energy field. Like if you're feeling stuck or you're feeling overwhelmed, like if I have a cold shower at the end, all of a sudden I just feel like completely transformed. It's like diving into the ocean, it's like diving into that cold water. It just changes that frequency or the
it really
energy.
does.
There's some kind of chemical reaction that happens within us that just loves it, even though like I'm scared to do it in the shower. Like for example, I'm scared to put it onto cold because I don't want to. Because I really love having a warm shower, but I know that this is going to be amazing for me.
Well, because I had someone with me this morning, and he's actually been coming he came last week with me. And this morning I was like, because he almost knew that the water was going to be cold. So he was standing outside for a long time. I'm like, just jump in and don't think about it. Just jump in, don't think about it. And he did it. And then I'm like, focus on how amazing you're going to feel once we're out of that water, because you feel electrifying. Your skin is like,
stay with me, because it's kind of like an analogy for life, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we just have to dive into
Yeah.
things, but we stand too far on the edge, overthinking
Controlling.
how it could be, what could go wrong. We sit in that negative realm, and then when we sit in that negative realm, those voices or those words get louder. But if you just dive in, it's already happened.
100%.
Like, that's a
100%.
beautiful analogy.
Yeah. It's so funny. We do let our thoughts get us or get in the way of,
Oh,
of something that's
100%.
amazing. Like,
Yeah.
again, as cold as the water is, once you get out of there, it's just a massive cleanse. Like, I just sit on a rock because the gorge is just beautiful. And once I'm done, and once I'm kind of warmed up and changed, I just sit and just look outside, look up to the gorge and just meditate for like, but not long, but I just sit with it and just give gratitude,
But isn't it interesting, right? Like, you go to a place with your clothes on, right? And then you get into the water that's freezing. Then
Yeah.
once you get outside, it's not that cold anymore.
Well, the rock still is cold under my feet.
I
But
know,
yeah.
but what I'm saying is we adapt.
Yeah.
Like, we think it's
Yeah.
going to be so much colder,
100%.
but it's
Yeah.
actually not, because the worst has already happened. So that moment was the coldest,
Oh,
and then everything else is just like a variation.
100%. I'm literally, you are buzzing once you are out of
Yeah.
that water, like
You're not
buzzing.
thinking about that.
No, exactly. But it's just, it's just a sacred space. Like, we are so lucky here in Australia to have that beautiful bush, to have our beautiful beaches, and to just be able to
There's a
ground.
million spots to heal ourselves, if that makes sense.
100%.
And nature is one of those natural, free healing environments.
Yeah.
You having a bad day, go for a swim. If you're having a bad day, go for a run in the park.
Yeah.
Or just go lay in the sun. It changes the way you feel, and it changes the way you look or see things.
And whenever your body's reacting, it's probably yearning for you to do something like that, yearning.
100%.
Yeah.
If you think about it, how many times do we lock ourselves indoors?
Yeah.
We go to an office, or we go to work, and we stay in a building, and then we come out of that building and we get on a bus or a train, and we're in another compartment, and then we get home. It's like we're just in these little spaces, and there's all this expansion that's available to us. And why aren't we sitting in that?
Well, think about where we came from, before these houses, before these buildings. We all came from living simply. We all came from the land. And so it's no surprise that the body, yearns for
100%.
taking it back. Yeah. But I think we're gonna have to wrap this up. We'll wrap up our first episode.
So maybe next week we'll talk, because I think I stole a bit of the limelight this time.
But I'm fine with that.
Next week we'll talk about your spiritual awakening and the things that brought you into becoming more spiritually attuned, and maybe you want to share some of your tools and your rituals that you use frequently to help guide others as well.
And we want to hear from you guys as well. Like,
yes.
Yeah, like Reaya said.
Send us your stories. I don't know, maybe we can link it below. And we'll put both of our emails there. So if you have a story, or if you have something you want to share, just kind of briefly write to us, and where we can get in contact with you. And then we can reach out in the coming few weeks, and we can invite you on. It'd be great to have you. And if you don't want to be on, you can just give us your story, and we'll be happy to share that.
Yeah. And we also just want to thank you guys for listening. Clearly you are part of our listening. They are listening. Clearly they're part of our soul tribe. The whole world is listening.
Everybody's listening. Yeah.
But we are really, really grateful. So and please do come forward and reach out to us, and we'll put our emails, like Reaya said, in the post.
Yeah.
All right.
Stay tuned, because we've got more coming to you next week, and more spiritual stuff coming to you next week.
More spiritual stuff, and a bit of moon stuff as well.
100%.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Stay inspired.
Namaste.
Namaste.